Any unit in the area, please respond. We have domestic dispute. Possible injury. You'll be sorry.
Not knowing who's inside the residence, I have my hand on my gun in case he pops out from a corner.
He was very, very pale. He had massive injuries.
We were looking around and we found these weapons. I started to think to myself, what's going on here?
There was a definite feeling that told me I should turn around.
Sorry. Do it! Wanted me to know that it was there and it was angry.
It felt like pure evil.
Joe, put the gun down.
911, please state your emergency.
I don't think it's real. I don't even know what we are. I don't even
I don't think you ever loved me. I don't think you ever loved me.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't even know who you are anymore, okay?
Well, I'm the same guy
I've
always
you are not.
been.
I'm done with it. I'm done. I'm leaving.
You'll be sorry.
I don't care.
You'll be sorry.
I'm calling the cops.
Do it!
I will!
Fine!
911, please state your emergency. Something's going on next door, a fight. Is anyone injured? I can't tell. There's yelling and screaming. It sounds violent. What is the location of the disturbance? We're 36 Red Pine Avenue, so I guess they're 38. An officer is on the way.
I'm on my way.
On patrol nearby, State Trooper Timothy Walker responds to the 911 call.
I was dispatched to a residence for the report of some sort of distress.
With few details, the officer is not sure what to expect.
You always have to prepare for inherent dangers that may lie ahead.
Police, open up.
Adding to the tension, Officer Walker finds the house completely silent. And the front door ajar.
So you have to clear every single room. So you have to identify each room, and you have to make sure that nobody else is there.
You'll be sorry.
Be sorry.
Clearly, someone is still in the house.
Hello, is there anybody here?
Be sorry.
The officer has no choice but to go in blind.
Not knowing the layout of the residence at all, too. Just all the inherent dangers. Going to something cold, not knowing who they are, what are their capacity.
Hang up and try your call again. Please hang up now. This is a recording. Please hang up and
All signs confirm a violent altercation. But where are they now?
Such a creep.
Is there anybody there?
Get away from me. I hate you.
Moving through the house, he gets the eerie sense that whoever is still here is watching him, waiting for the right moment to pounce.
I felt a dark presence, and it was as if it was laying a heavy, heavy weight on my shoulders.
Hello, is anyone there?
I walk in through the main hallway, and I make a right-hand turn.
Whoa. Tell me your name, sir.
Joe.
I see this man sitting in a chair with a shotgun.
Were you here the whole time?
I heard you come in. You're too late.
He was very calm. His voice didn't change in fluctuation. He did not appear angry.
You're gonna need to put the gun down, Joe. Joe. Are you alone?
He was in turmoil, I believe. I'm trying to think, how can I help him?
Joe, are you by yourself in the house?
I just wanted to confirm whether or not there was multiple people were inside the residence.
Joe? Hands off the weapon, Joe. Put the gun down, okay?
As the officer inches closer, the room suddenly goes dark. And the eerie feeling of being watched intensifies.
We were not alone. There was something else in there with us. Something dark, something very scary.
Joe, just give me the gun, okay? Hand me the gun. Joe, put the gun down. Joe, put the gun down.
The gun went off, and I stood there for a second, or maybe even 10 seconds, just wondering what just happened. Oh my God, I didn't even know. I was just completely distraught. It was just awful, just absolutely awful.
This is dispatch. Walker, what's your status?
But despite the carnage, the officer, as per protocol, still has to confirm the victim's status.
I immediately went over as I'm trying to check for a pulse, bleeding out, and there was no pulse present. He was dead.
But what happens next?
Tell me sorry.
Suggests something different.
In that moment, I was completely terrified.
Called to the scene of a domestic dispute,
Hello?
State Trooper Tim Walker witnesses the gruesome death of a man.
Joe, just put the gun down. Put the gun down. Give me the gun.
Who, momentarily, seems to return from the dead.
I'm sorry.
It was clear that this voice was coming from the individual. But the only problem was that he was dead. That something had just happened, and it was something that I could never explain.
Officer Walker, what is your status of the active search of the premises?
I was able to come to my senses, separate myself from what had just happened. I still had to do my job.
Dispatch, I've got a suicide. A gunshot. Ambulance transport needed.
This is dispatch. Paramedics are on the way.
Is there anyone else here?
Adding to the mystery is the total disappearance of his girlfriend.
Dispatch 173, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello?
You continually try to make audible contact with the individual that you're trying to make contact with.
Hello, is anyone there? Hello? Hello, is anyone there?
As he moves to the back of the house, the feeling of a dark presence grows stronger. In one of the rooms, something stirs. Yet, there's nothing inside, except a sudden and drastic drop in temperature.
I felt like it was freezing cold. What was really odd about the whole situation is it was a hot summer night, and it felt like a meat locker.
Cold spots happen when a spirit is pulling available energy out of its environment in order to manipulate objects or people. I believe these are sometimes warnings that perhaps you're treading on very dangerous ground, a place that you're not wanted or not welcome.
Something wanted me to leave his room. Just pure, what I could say is pure evil.
Officer Walker, EMS en route for transport, ETA 2 minutes.
Unwilling to spend another second in that room, the officer rejoins the victim, where he has to hold down the fort until the paramedics arrive, which feels like an eternity.
It was freezing cold again. My muscles tensed up. I could breathe, but it just did not make me feel comfortable at all. It sucked the air out of me.
But breathing quickly becomes the least of his problems.
I see a black cloud, like literally a presence leave his body. What the hell? I could see a head, I can see a torso. I felt pure evil in the house. Very scary. Felt that it wanted me to know that it was there and it was angry. I knew from my faith that I said, I have to pray for my life.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
And I immediately just said a prayer.
Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth.
His words seemed to have a profound effect on the dark energy.
As it dissipated, it went over me and out the entrance that I had come through. Within a minute or two, the room gradually started to feel normal.
Officer Walker, paramedics are en route and ETA about 10 minutes.
Copy that.
When the EMTs arrive, the officer learns that the victim's girlfriend left the house before he arrived on scene and is uninjured. In her report, the woman indicates that for the last few days, her boyfriend was acting violently out of sorts, filled with dark energy.
If there was a dark energy present, it may have been the force that pushed this man to suicide.
You know what? I don't even recognize you anymore. All you do is sit around.
In the girlfriend's words, Joe had seemed almost possessed.
Some common signs of possession are extreme changes in personality. A person might start speaking differently, might become more isolated.
I do believe that at some point a dark entity possessed him. I believe that the demon wanted me to see it, to affect my own mental health. That demon may have wanted to leave his body and enter someone else's body. Possibly mine, I don't know.
Hail Mary.
The officer believes only his prayers saved him from the same gruesome end. A dark thought that leaves a deep and permanent scar.
Wish I can unsee this. I relive that day on a regular basis.
Hey, Walker. You okay?
He's inside.
This incident did confirm my suspicions that there are deep, dark forces that roam and/or walk upon this earth.
Snow will continue to intensify throughout the evening, bringing with it low visibility and slick roads. If you're out there behind the wheel tonight, make sure you slow down and drive safe.
911, what is your emergency?
I just passed a wrecked car. There's smoke everywhere.
Is anyone injured?
I see one guy by the barrier.
Is anyone trapped in the vehicle, sir?
I don't know. I can't see from here.
Okay, sir, do not approach the vehicle. The fire department is on the way.
Responding to the 911 call is firefighter and paramedic Brian Meisinger.
When the call came in, it was Christmas Eve. Single car accident. You try to prepare for the absolute worst. And 9 times out of 10, it's not bad. But there's an occasional time it's a way worse scene than what you possibly imagined.
With few other details, Brian tries to anticipate what might be needed at the crash site.
I saw one car basically cut in half.
Standing nearby, in shock, a lucky survivor.
There was a young man rocking back and forth. He looked very dazed.
Sir, look at me.
My first job on any scene is patient care. Our priority is taking care of any victims.
I killed them.
Just kept saying, I killed him.
I killed them both. Killed who? They're dead. I killed them.
I said, who did you kill? Who did you kill? And he said, my brother and my cousin.
How many people were in the car with you?
I said, so you had 2 people in the car with you? And he said, yes.
Brian's job now is to find those passengers.
We found the one victim in the back seat of the car. He was obviously a fatality.
But there's no sign anywhere of a second passenger.
Hey, buddy, are you sure there were 2 people in the car? 2 people, my brother and my cousin.
Brian wonders if the shock might be clouding the man's account of the events.
I killed them.
We kept asking him, are you sure there were 2 people in the car? And he said, yes, there was 2. I killed them both.
Sir, just stay right here. I'm gonna be right back, okay? Don't move. Go grab the trauma kit. Okay,
it's my brother and my cousin.
Stay right here.
Anticipating that, in the impact, the body might have been flung from the vehicle, Brian expands the perimeter of his search.
Generally, when you're ejected from a car in a high-speed accident, you know, human body can be thrown anywhere from 50 to 200 feet, depending on the speed.
But why would only one passenger get tossed from the wreck?
Just didn't make sense, given that there was still one in the back seat, and the other gentleman was sitting there talking to us.
One possibility is that the victim is alive, but badly disoriented from trauma.
He could have a head injury. He could be confused, walking around.
The fresh snow has also covered any possible footprints, making the search near impossible.
The best way to describe that situation would be dread and helplessness, because I can't do anything. I'm not being able to perform my job to the best of my abilities.
As Brian moves deeper into the woods, he's overcome with an inexplicable sense of dread.
Something's not right. It just kept nagging at me. Something's not right here.
face to face with a man, not the teenager he's looking for.
I saw a gentleman standing there. Didn't fit the profile of what the young man was saying who was in the car with him.
Also perplexing is what he's wearing, or rather, not wearing.
It struck me as a little weird to see the gentleman out there with no coat. I thought that was kind of strange. Just the simple fact that it was cold.
And even stranger, given the location.
The closest home is about 1.5 miles down the road, and it just didn't make sense that you would go out in that kind of weather with no coat on. In hindsight, it seemed a little creepy, but you're in the moment, the adrenaline's running, and my only thought is taking care of victims from the car accident and making sure I find everybody. And I said, what can I do for you? Can I help you? Were you involved in the accident? I start going through all my questions.
Brian tries to get answers from the man.
He pointed. It was probably 75 to 100 foot away. He said, I have another victim over here. I have a young boy. He said, I have a young boy over here. I found my third victim.
Can you hear me?
A young boy laying on the ground. He was about 16 years old. He was very, very pale. He had massive injuries. Kind of had an uneasy feeling. There was a definite feeling that told me I should turn around. When I turned around, I saw the man again. There was a woman standing there with him. The expression on her face was pretty neutral. She never really showed a lot of expression. She didn't really move. I mean, she just kind of stood there and watched him. And she didn't have the proper attire on for the weather.
You see what happened?
It seemed kind of weird to me again that they weren't acting like they were cold, but they were good enough to cover the young man up and do what they could for him.
Do you know this boy? Did you see what happened?
I asked the gentleman where he found the young man, and he said, over by the car. And I said, okay, well, thank you for wrapping him up and keeping him safe. I asked the couple to stay around if the sheriff had any questions for him.
When did you...
But when I turned back around, they were gone. Were just vanished.
While looking for a possible second casualty in a brutal remote car crash, firefighter and paramedic Brian Meisinger encounters a man strangely oblivious to the bitter cold, who leads him to the missing victim. As Brian examines the boy's injuries, he notices a woman also without a coat. But when he turns back, they're gone.
They were nowhere to be found. And the thing of it is there's nowhere to go there. Just doesn't make any sense how they just vanished like that. And that totally freaked me out.
Can you hear me?
With more pressing concerns, Brian focuses on his victim's injuries.
I looked at his injuries and called the ambulance to take this boy in.
Dispatch, I'm gonna need another ambulance. I have a young teen in critical condition.
Back at the crash site, Brian is joined by his partner and other first responders who have arrived to help with victim transport. Brian hopes his partner can help clear up his mystery.
Hey, did you see that couple?
Did you see these guys? You know, did you see this couple leave? Did you see a car leave? And nobody saw anything. It didn't make any sense at all.
Left struggling for answers, Brian walks back to where he last saw the couple, looking for clues.
I went back to where the boy was laying. There was still a blanket there. only footprints around were the fire boots that I was wearing and the 2 sets of prints coming in from the ambulance company. There were no other footprints in that area. There were 2 people. There should have been footprints. That was one of those chilling moments that makes you think, holy shit, I'm in the Twilight Zone.
When there's catastrophic events or some sort of trauma, what can often happen is that we see an influx in paranormal activity in regards to different entities or spirits that actually start pitching in to help.
I've been doing this a long time and been a fireman a lot of years, and not a lot bothers me, not a lot rattles me, but that one made me very uncomfortable. It was terrifying to know that I'm the only one who saw the 2 people out there.
Car 38, car 64, where are you?
First responders are very much in the moment when they come into any sort of emergency situation. And oftentimes being focused in the moment and being focused onto something will actually open up your perception a little bit more in terms of what may be going on around you.
I have a lot of questions. I want to know how they came back to help, or why they were put there, or why was it me they singled out.
Determined to prove what he saw was real, Brian digs deeper.
I started doing some research, going through the old firehouse records. That's when I found a couple matching that description in previous records.
He finds a mention of a terrible 1950s crash involving a man and a woman who were dead ringers for the couple he encountered in the woods.
They matched the description of a couple that was killed in a car accident in that area in the, like I said, late 50s, early 60s, much in a similar way. They went off the road and hit a tree.
That tree was in the very same location where they carried the victim and covered him with a blanket.
My feeling on the couple is that they were victims of an accident in that area years ago. Were somehow looking out for the young man and trying to give me a hand to find him.
Often with spirits, and especially human spirits, we find that they will come in traumatic situations just to help out humankind in general. They tend to be extremely empathetic.
How did it change the way you see both the living and the dead?
What I saw in that moment has completely changed my life. It gives me hope to know that there's something in the afterlife. This isn't it. It lets me know that, maybe there are some guardian angels to take care of people and make good things happen.
Code 2245.
We've got a code 48 at 782 Westdale Avenue. Elderly woman, confusion, disorientation.
Copy that.
Halfway through a busy night shift, paramedic Steve Kawamura and his partner respond to the emergency call, unclear as to the details.
When the call came in, it was strange and bizarre. It said, intruder, increased confusion, elderly female.
Steve and his partner soon arrive at the location and wait for the other first responders.
2245 at location, standing by.
The standard procedure for us is to usually stand by and wait till the police come.
Police deferrable, non-urgent. Caller is anxious, still confused. Officers will not be
The paramedics are informed that, based on past 911 calls to this location, the police will not be attending.
Dispatch informed me that this patient had called repeatedly for intruders, and the police had been there many times before, and there was never any intruder. So they stopped responding to that address.
But the EMTs feel they have a duty to check in on the caller and assess her condition.
Being paramedics, we did what we normally do.
Hello there, ma'am. Is everything okay?
There's somebody in the house. I got an intruder. There's somebody here. Just really.
We entered the house, and there was an elderly female there.
There's somebody in the basement. I'm really scared. You know. God, I'm sorry.
Just have a seat.
She seemed very concerned and kept on stating, there's a man there, there's a man inside the house.
Based on the woman's long history of making false 911 calls regarding intruders, the paramedics instead focus on identifying the cause of the woman's confusion.
He's downstairs. There's an intruder downstairs. Please.
We started asking her questions. What does this guy look like?
He looks... he's here. He's here.
How did he get in?
There's an intruder here.
Has he hurt you?
He scares me.
The woman's responses are muddled and vague.
Frightened and
When somebody has trouble answering standard questions like that, it tells us that they are confused. We assume that she possibly had dementia.
Please, please go.
So we asked her a few questions, standard questions that we would ask anybody. Do you know what day it is?
Tuesday, because last week I...
Do you know what time it is? Do you know where you are? What is your name?
It's Sarah, but I don't see...
And she didn't skip a beat.
There is an intruder.
With dementia ruled out as a cause, they turned their attention to her physical condition.
We checked her over, we took her vital signs, and they all seemed very normal.
I know there's an intruder in the basement. Please go and check. Please go and check if there's somebody in the basement.
We asked her if she wanted to go to the hospital, and she kept on saying, please look for the man in my house. And I looked at my partner, and I said, you know what? It's really not that busy right now. We'll entertain this lady and help her out.
Please,
we'll look
please
into
go.
it.
Please,
Just stay here, ma'am. Just stay here.
Please go.
And sometimes we do that as paramedics. We'll get them a coffee. We'll sit down with them for a little while, the elderly, because they get lonely, and sometimes that's the reason why they call us. They're just lonely. So we didn't mind taking an extra few minutes and looking around the house.
The paramedics head for the basement, where the woman claims the intruder is hiding.
It was an unfinished basement with a whole bunch of junk in it. Nothing remarkable.
Despite the creepy atmosphere, the EMTs find nothing suggesting a home invasion.
There was nothing that we could see that would indicate even anybody had been down there in a long time. There was a lot of dust on everything down there. We were looking around and I noticed something strange.
But something does catch their eye. Objects hardly befitting a lonely old woman.
We found these weapons. I started to think to myself, what's going on here? Is there something we're not seeing? This is really strange. And I started to get a little creeped out. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. I've never seen anything like that before. We asked the woman, what are these for? And she said those were for the man.
The woman insists the weapons are to protect herself against the intruder.
It reaffirmed the fact that this woman actually believed that somebody was in her house and that she would need these to defend herself.
Suddenly, the electricity starts to go haywire, and a strange feeling descends on Steve.
It felt like this dark energy that was saying, do not come in here, through emotion, and it invoked fear in me.
In the darkness, they hear footsteps, but there's no one there.
That freaked me out.
Paramedic Steve Kawamura and his partner respond to a bizarre 911 call from a woman claiming there is a dangerous intruder in her basement.
Go away!
While their search comes up empty, they uncover a sinister collection of weapons to fend off a presence that can be felt, heard, but not seen.
Got something that seems to be very territorial and very negative, and oftentimes we see this associated with very fearful and negative mental states.
Despite feeling and hearing a presence in the basement, Steve escorts his patient back to the living room, dismissing the experience as a figment of his imagination.
There's somebody upstairs as well, you know. I heard him.
And determined to calm the woman's fears.
Please go and check upstairs as well.
I thought, I need to make sure that when I tell this woman that nobody's there, that I've checked the whole house.
Please.
Look after her.
I've seen him before up there. Please.
While his partner stays with the anxious patient, Steve makes his way upstairs.
I checked all the bedrooms, and there was one bedroom left to check.
As he enters the room, he feels a sudden drop in temperature.
It must have dropped 15 degrees because I could see my breath. And it was a summer night, and I shouldn't be able to see my breath.
Again, he hears disembodied footsteps.
I don't know what it was, and that's what really scared me.
A temperature drop can be another warning sign that the entity is not happy and wants you out. If somebody is not familiar with dealing with these entities, the best thing they can do at that point is to turn around and leave.
He follows the footsteps, which lead him to a closet, from which he hears noises not at all human.
I get this emotional feeling right here. Do not come in here. Do not approach this door.
What we end up seeing is a progression in warning signs before an actual attack. Growling, barking. Sometimes it can go from 0 to 60 very quickly.
Despite being terrified, Steve pushes ahead, determined to find a logical explanation. But what he finds is anything but logical.
Then a wind starts to blow inside the closet towards me. I did not see a vent or a window or anything in that closet.
The wind moves out of the closet and into the room.
The wind was pushing so hard against my body, I couldn't keep my eyes open and I couldn't physically push forward anymore.
Something otherworldly is determined to push Steve and the woman out of this house. But at what cost?
It felt like pure evil. I wanted to get out of that house. So I ran out into the hall, I stopped, and I took a few breaths. And instantly, that feeling was gone. That feeling of pure evil, pure terror was instantly gone.
For her own protection, Steve decides to take the patient to the hospital.
As soon as we left and we got in the ambulance, I told my partner the whole story. You couldn't believe it. When I was in that closet, it felt like there was something in there forcing me out. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't human.
The same evil force Steve believes has been psychologically abusing the old woman.
The number one tool of abusers in general is isolation. And we see this again in negative entity cases.
This experience proved the fact that the paranormal exists and that there are things out there that I cannot explain. For the skeptics, you gotta experience it. There's no other way.